Panelists.
Welcome everyone to what is going to turn out to be a very exciting panel on building peace. My name is Bryn and I'm a past Rotary International Director, a past trustee of the Rotary Foundation, a past chair of the Rotary Peace Centers, but excitingly, I am the current aide to Rotary International President-elect Sheikh Mehta. Rotary International Director Kamal, the convener of this institute, has put together an exciting panel, and I believe it could be one of the first in Rotary with the people that we have here. He's brought together some Rotary senior leaders with experience and a passion for peace. As well, he's brought together a distinguished group of international diplomats who, although they have all worked in the field of peace, I think their individual experiences are extremely unique. It is truly an international panel with representatives from North America, South America, Europe, and Africa presenting to an institute in India. So let's get started. Our first panelist is Rotary International Director Peter Kyle. Peter is currently a Rotary International Director, but he was a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar a number of years ago. By profession, Peter is a lawyer, and he retired as a senior international attorney with the World Bank. He has had a number of roles within Rotary, including chair of the Rotary Peace Centers and the dean of the Rotary Representative Network that works closely with United Nations offices around the world. Peter, welcome. Peter, I have a lot of experience with Rotary and peace, and I've heard you do presentations on it. How did Rotary become involved in peace building activities?
Well, thank you, Bryn. Thank you for that very gracious introduction. And may I say what a pleasure and indeed an honor it is to be serving on this panel. So Rotary's had a long and rich history of involvement in peace building activities, going right back to the very beginning. The first Rotary Club was chartered in Chicago in 1905. The clubs grew slowly. By 1910, there were 16 clubs. The overriding international theme at that time was the possibility of war. The forces of nationalism were breaking out in Europe. And as we know, in 1914, World War I started. Germany and England declared war on each other. It was a terrible war. After the war ended in 1918, once again, the focus of Rotary was on peace. What could Rotary and Rotarians do to ensure that a war such as World War I, with all the devastation that it caused, could never happen again? In 1921, at the Rotary International Convention in Edinburgh, Scotland, Rotarians adopted a resolution calling, amongst other things, for Rotarians to promote international understanding, goodwill, and peace. And those words, international understanding, goodwill, and peace, have since been enshrined in the object of Rotary. And next year, we will celebrate the centennial of those words. And of course, they form the basis of the Rotary Foundation. Clubs continue to grow very rapidly. In 1939, we celebrated the formation of club number 5,000, Rockmart, Georgia. But at that time, once again, the forces of nationalism were becoming very evident. War broke out in 1939. In 1940, Rotarians met at an international convention in Havana, Cuba, adopted a resolution calling, again, amongst other things, for respect for human rights. That was the first time those words, respect for human rights, had entered into the international lexicon. And that became the basis for the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, signed in 1948. Perhaps one of the most significant documents signed in the last century. In 1944, when President Truman and Prime Minister Churchill decided the time had come to establish an organization that would forever prohibit war, Rotary was one of the very few organizations invited to send lawyers and other experts to work alongside officials from China, the former Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom to begin the process of drafting the UN Charter. And when the Charter was signed in San Francisco in June of 1945, 49 out of the 800 delegates were Rotarians. So we've had a long involvement in peace building, and that continues very much into the present time.
Thank you, Peter. That's a very good synopsis. Excuse me, we'll get to the Rotary Peace Centers in a moment, but what other peace activities is Rotary involved in besides our Rotary Peace Centers?
Well, we've had a long involvement, as I mentioned, in peace building activities. Apart from the peace program, some 10 years ago, we adopted what we described as future vision, a new vision for the Rotary Foundation. And we launched 6 areas of focus. One of them was peace and conflict resolution. A few years later, Rotarians established a Rotary Action Group for peace and conflict resolution. We've had peace conferences, peace symposia. We've partnered with several international organizations, including the Institute for Economics and Peace and Mediators Beyond Borders. And with the help of those partners, we have established a Rotary Peace Academy. We have peace workshops, you name it. If it's got the word peace in it, Rotary is involved one way or another. Rotary, peace is in our DNA. And we are continuing to be actively involved in Rotary Days at the United Nations and various other organizations, in each case, promoting the core activity of peace and conflict resolution. So, as I said before, peace building, peace is in Rotary's DNA.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's wonderful. Our next guest is past Rotary International Director Larry Lunsford. And the interesting thing is that Larry is also a past Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar and as I just mentioned, a past Rotary International Director. And he is a trustee-elect for our Rotary Foundation. So congratulations, Larry. Larry, you're now the chair of the Rotary Peace Centers. So I'd like to concentrate on that for just a moment. One of the most significant ways that Rotary has worked towards building peace, as Peter has mentioned, over the last 20 years is through our Rotary Peace Centers program. Could you please give us an update on our institute participants about the evolution of our program and its current status?
Certainly, Bryn. Thank you. And it truly is a distinct privilege to join this panel. Rotary's Peace Centers program formally began, as Bryn mentioned, 20 years ago in 2001, 2002, to celebrate Rotary's founder, Paul Harris, and his vision of a more peaceful world. It should be noted that past Rotary International President Raja Sabu was among the architects of this program, which encompasses a network of peace builders and community leaders dedicated to preventing and resolving conflicts around the world. To serve this vision, Rotary has developed partnerships with renowned universities around the world that host our Rotary Peace Centers. The goal of the centers is to empower, educate, and increase the capacity of peace builders through rigorous academic training, practice, and global networking opportunities. Currently, I hope you know that there are 7 Rotary Peace Centers around the world. 5 of these 7 centers have programs which offer master's degrees in disciplines related to peace and development. A joint program at Duke University and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in the United States, the University of Bradford in England, Uppsala University in Sweden, the University of Queensland in Australia, and International Christian University in Japan. The other 2 of the 7 centers at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand and our newest partnership at Makerere University in Uganda have programs that offer a professional development certificate or diploma in peace building. Certainly, we are most pleased to see the extension of the Peace Centers program to the African continent. Each Rotarian should take great pride. Since the Rotary Peace Center's inception, over 1,300 fellows have graduated from our programs and are working on peace and development initiatives in more than 115 countries. Our program alumni serve as leaders in both governmental and non-governmental organizations, in education and research, in law enforcement, and in international organizations such as the United Nations. Rotary's alumni relations team keeps in touch with Peace Fellow alumni through surveys and direct outreach. And what we see is that 93% of these more than 1,300 working alumni are in jobs connected to peace and development. As we look to future growth in the program, one component of our growth plan is the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association, which is actively working on various initiatives with Rotarians around the world.
Thank you, Larry. I know when Peace Fellows are selected, it's a very exciting time. What can you tell us about the incoming class of our Rotary Peace Fellows that I know was just selected?
Yes, Bryn, you're right. It is exciting, and the moment has arrived where we remind that each in total up to 130 Rotary Peace Fellows are selected each year to participate in either that master's program or the professional development program. Up to 50 of those fellows are selected at 10 per year for the master's program, which lasts anywhere from 15 months to 24 months, depending upon the Peace Center. And then up to 80 fellows are selected to participate in our one-year certificate program. We have 2 cohorts each year of up to 20 fellows at each of the 2 certificate centers. Now, in accordance with our trustees' May 2020 decision, the newly selected 2021 cohorts have been reduced by 10%. Therefore, I am pleased to report that the Rotary Peace Centers Committee did meet in September to select 117 incoming Rotary Peace Fellows for 2021. This was the selection of the 20th class of Master's Program Peace Fellows and our 32nd class of Certificate Program Peace Fellows. These fellows, representing peace and development leaders from 63 countries, were selected from a qualified applicant pool of more than 750 peace leaders globally. Friends, this was the most competitive selection to date. We saw a 22% increase of qualified candidates from the MENA region, a 16% increase from Asia, and an 84% increase in Africa. In fact, 9 of the 117 finalists come from the zones represented at this institute, which is a tremendous achievement. 4 finalists come from India, 3 finalists from Nepal, and 2 finalists come from Sri Lanka. All the finalists and the supporting districts were notified in November. All of our peace centers have made adaptations due to COVID-19 and continue to remain flexible to best meet the needs of our fellows. We congratulate each and every one of these new selections, and we look forward to the ways they will continue Rotary's efforts in building peace.
Thanks, Larry. The Peace Fellow program does have a cost to it, and our participants may be aware of it, but could you just quickly remind us of how these costs are met?
Certainly, our Rotary Peace Fellowship, Bryn, is a fully funded opportunity, tremendous opportunity that covers tuition, a living stipend, travel, field and conference experiences, and more. The average cost of the 2-year Master's Fellowship is approximately $75,000. And the average cost of the 1-year Certificate Fellowship is around $13,000. Funding comes from a combination of district support, district designated funds, endowed gifts, and over 4,000 directed gifts year to year. For this incoming class of fellows that it was exciting to just speak about, it is worth noting that the projected cost for the 117 fellows in the 2021-2022 class will be approximately $5.3 million. Tremendous investment by Rotary. Fortunately, even with the addition of the new Peace Center in Uganda, our Rotary Peace Centers Committee did not have to request the use of any World Fund funds for these 2021-2022 program awards. The awards are going to be fully funded from the spendable earnings of the Peace Center's endowment, from the directed gifts, and from the district designated funds. So, Bryn, we certainly hope that each Rotarian will be a strong advocate for our Rotary Peace Centers program. The next fellowship application cycle is right around the corner, launching in February 2021. I would ask each of you to determine how the people in your network can support the Rotary Peace Centers, because indeed, This program is one of the most significant ways that Rotary works toward building peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. That was a great synopsis of our peace programs. I'd now like to welcome our diplomatic guests that are here. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that the bios on each one of these guests is just incredible, and I'm going to try and introduce them as briefly as I can. Our first guest is Ambassador Liberata Mula. She served as Tanzania's ambassador in Washington and the permanent secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. Previous to that, she served as the first executive secretary to the International Conference on the Great Lakes region of Africa. She serves currently as a member of the advisory group of the United Nations Peacebuilding Fund, and she's also an associate director of the Institute for African Studies at the George Washington University. Ambassador Mula has been appointed as an independent, eminent person by the Secretary General of the United Nations Advisory Board on Peacebuilding. Ambassador Mula, thank you for joining us. My question to you is, as a member of the Independent Eminent Persons for the UN Peacebuilding Architecture Review, could you tell us what the underlying weaknesses or gaps are being addressed in this review process for the sustenance of global peace and development, keeping in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals on their 2030 agenda? Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on the time zones. And as a diplomat, what we know most is to thank. I really want to thank you for the kind invitation, and also especially thank my colleague and friend, Ambassador Matli, Atul, who connected me with this wonderful group. I know, of course, the time is limited. Of course, when we talk of the peacebuilding architecture review and the role of the independent eminent persons, it will take another session. But let me say, in short, what was the mandate and why the Secretary General, in his own wisdom, decided to put up a group of eminent persons from different geographical regions of the world. We were 10 of us, and we undertook this role on the basis of what they call the twin resolutions that were adopted by both the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly. For once, I think this was very historic because they all agreed that there was a need, this was in 2016, that there was a need to define sustaining peace as both a goal and a process to build a common vision of a society, ensuring that the needs of all segments of the population are taken into account. It also realized that there was a need to take a comprehensive, a cross-pillar, inclusive approach, and to closely coordinate with local actors and align its work with the national priorities. Also, the twin resolutions, among others, emphasize that sustaining peace is a shared responsibility that needs to be fulfilled by the government and all other stakeholders, and that the scale and nature of the challenge of sustaining peace can be met through close strategic and operational partnerships. And this is actually the more importance of participating in this virtual meeting, because this is what we were seeking to see, that the United Nations is not the only actor, that they need to work in partnership with all local actors, with stakeholders involved in these issues of peace and security. But also what was emphasized, the need for inclusivity and national ownerships of this at the field level. So we took stock of what has been happening. There have been a number of reviews, I think since 2005, but then we met all the stakeholders. We consulted widely, but of course in the process there was outbreak of COVID. So that had also to advise the work we were doing, but also everything went virtual. But also what was important and what we focused upon was the linkage, to have the linkage between the humanitarian, the development, and the peace nexus. You will agree with me that every time there is either disaster, whether it's natural, whether it's conflict, what works most is the humanitarian intervention. But then when that is done, everyone forgets that you need to have sustained peace to avoid those kind of conflicts or humanitarian crises. So our focus was to see how we can be able to bring this peace, the peace component, into all these issues of humanitarian and development. But what was emphasized, and this is what I want to underline here, was the issue of inclusivity, which came out prominently in our discussions. And of course, the resolution put it as people-centered approaches and inclusive national ownership. And that the thinking should be in line with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal Framework, especially Goal 16. So because it was realized that the exclusion is the most important factor of why peace fails, the marginalization, whether it's a minority, whether it's one there, this is what we thought this needed to be addressed. But also it was recognized that the UN is not the only actor on the ground. Partnerships at the local, national, and regional level with a broad range of factors can expand the legitimacy and ownership for peace-building efforts, including women, of course, the youth groups, the civil society, the organizations, and community organizations. So we also underline the fact of importance of building coalitions. Building, of course, working with the local peace builders, working with the groups like you, of course, with the parliamentarians. So this, we recognize that peace building architecture review, or the nexus between humanitarian development and peace, is a conversation that not only involves the United Nations and partners, but rather should be a broader discussion that involves how national, local government, civil society organizations work together. But also we believed that the UN's role is to empower these actors in protecting and promoting the civic space, which has been shrinking. So meeting in the midst of the outbreak of COVID-19, our collective concern was the idea that this unprecedented crisis, health crisis, is aggravating poverty, is aggravating inequalities and gender-based violence, while increasing vulnerability by impeding on people's access to employment, food, and other resources, with particular effects on women and girls. But then we also recognize that the outbreak of the COVID-19 and the global widespread has reminded us the importance of strengthening multilateralism and partnerships in confronting today's challenges that recognize no borders. It has proven beyond reasonable doubt that there is no country that is immune, however powerful. So in conclusion, let me also quote one of the powerful women of the times, Noreen Hazen, who said, "A word of sustainable peace, a word without war, is too heavy a burden to be left in the hands of any one institution or government or gender." So this is why I find the relevance of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Liberata. That closing statement is very powerful, and thank you very much for that. Our next guest is from Argentina, Justice Sylvia Fernandes. Justice Fernandes is also a former Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. She served as a diplomat of Argentina and as president of the International Criminal Court. She is a member of the Crimes Against Humanity Initiative, special representative of Argentina to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and she is the chair of the Global Action Against Mass Atrocity Crimes. And Justice Sylvia, thank you very much for joining us. The question I have for you is very short, but I think it's very important. Why should Rotary or any other organization invest in peace?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you. Greetings to everyone. It is indeed a great pleasure and honor to be part of this extremely distinguished panel. To your very short and indeed important question, why invest in peace? Well, I would say that because it's in everyone's interest, as simple as that. Whether you are a diplomat or another type of state official, Whether you are a teacher, a doctor, a CEO of a private company, it is in everybody's interest and is everybody's responsibility to invest in peace. Now, this may sound like an abstraction, because when we talk about peace or about war, we think of something that is really far away, that is movie-like, that is far away from us, from our daily lives. However, war is real and has many consequences, and not only for those fighting the war, but for all of us. First, it has horrific consequences for many civilians who are trapped in the fight or who are intentionally targeted by those involved in the violence. As an international criminal judge, I have had firsthand direct experience of the harm suffered by thousands of victims and their families as a result of the atrocities committed against them in context of violence in various regions and continents. But victims of atrocity crimes are not the only ones that suffer from the violence. My experience has also showed me that this violence also affects the communities of the victims. Conflicts wreck societies, they destroy social bonds. They also destroy the economy, making it hard for the country to recover, to grow and thrive. So also, in addition to the communities that are directly involved, current developments in countries, in conflicts that take place now at this very moment in various parts of the world, also show us that they have far-reaching consequences beyond the societies in conflict zones, impacting on other countries and societies across borders and regions. Let's recall that over the past decade, outbreaks of violence, fighting, and conflict have forced millions of people to flee their homes and have generated the massive displacement of people, not only towards neighboring countries, but also towards other regions and continents. Massive displacements, and Ambassador Mula has already referred to these displacements. Massive displacements and migrations not only generate great suffering among those who flee, but also huge tensions within societies in the receiving state. Also in economic terms, the impact of conflict for development in affected countries and ultimately for the global economy is also huge. So the evidence today is overwhelming. Development is blocked by conflict and high levels of violence. So it is clear that world peace is crucial, directly or indirectly, for the well-being of all of us. Now, when we say investing in peace, how to contribute? And this goes also to your question, and I have already heard very important activities that the Rotary deploys in order to contribute to peace. And this is very important, and it has been said here also. Firstly, peace is not only for diplomats, states, and international organizations such as the UN. Of course, peace efforts by states and international organizations are paramount, are crucial. They bear the main responsibility in contributing to peace. Actually, and it has been also recalled here, the United Nations was created at the end of the Second World War to prevent war and to maintain peace and security. And the current Secretary General has made of peace prevention and peace building his top priority. However, it is also clear that in our diversified world, peace building requires the efforts and contributions of many other actors as well. Civil society organizations and associations such as the Rotary, private companies, academia. So this is very important to recall. Peace is not just for states and governments or international organizations. Secondly, and this is my second element, peace efforts do not relate only to a particular field or discipline, as peace is not only linked to peace and security, but more broadly to sustainable development, and it has also been mentioned here. One of the UN goals to attain sustainable development by 2030, has also mentioned by Ambassador Mula, is indeed peace, justice, and strong institutions. This goal, that is known as Goal 16, sits at the heart of the agenda of sustainable development, cannot be achieved without stability and peace. So contributions to peace can thus take various forms and take place at various stages. You can make contributions by seeking to solve the conflict once it has erupted, or to address its consequences once the conflict has ended. But also, you can make contributions to prevention. And this is probably the most important field for civil society organizations, to contribute to prevent by addressing the root causes of conflict. And again, it has been mentioned here, the drivers of violence are basically inequality, discrimination, and other forms of exclusion and intolerance. So these contributions to this can be done by promoting appropriate policies, mechanisms, and most importantly, and again, you have said so much about this, but through education of future generations, because the young students of today are the leaders of tomorrow. So it is so very important that they are educated to appreciate and respect diversity and inclusion. So conflict and violence are unfortunately on the rise today. A recent World Bank Group report found that by 2030, over half of the world's population will be living in countries affected by high levels of violence. And this figure is expected to rise to 80% by 2035 unless global action is taken. So we all can and must take part in this global action by promoting initiatives or supporting efforts undertaken by others at the UN, at the regional organizations, and creating partnerships, establishing programs with others, as you are doing yourselves at the Rotary. So again, I finish by saying that it is in everybody's interest and it is everybody's responsibility. So I'm very happy that contribution to peace is in the DNA of the Rotary. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Justice Sylvia. Thank you very much for that. Our last diplomatic guest is Ambassador Arthur Matli. Now, Arthur is not an ambassadorial scholar, but he is a Rotarian. Ambassador Matli is currently the ambassador from Switzerland to Romania. His list of where he served previously is incredible. He served as a diplomat in Brussels, Beijing, New Delhi, Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and Lusaka. While working as a delegate of the International Committee of the Red Cross, he was posted in Geneva, Jerusalem, Damascus, Riyadh, and Dubrovnik. Welcome, Ambassador Arthur.
Thank you.
My question to you, and I think we all know that Switzerland is considered a neutral state, but why is a state like Switzerland investing in peace?
Well, thank you so much, Bryn, for the invite, and thank you to all the panelists, also what they said, because they gave me already part of my answer to your question, why Switzerland is investing so much into peace. It is what Albert Einstein said also, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding, and we have seen and we know how much Rotary invests also in world understanding. We have, as states, we have a moral responsibility to look closely and to reflect on how we can alleviate suffering. If we turn away from those in need, the suffering can easily become ours. And I think Justice Sylvia Fernandes, the Colombian ambassador, Liberata, Mula, have demonstrated it and illustrated from their experience, professional experience. I liked very much what Rotary International Director Peter Kyle said when he said, peace is in the DNA of Rotary. In Switzerland, I haven't passed the DNA test yet, but it is in our constitution. So it's almost equivalent to the DNA. In our constitution, we have even mentioned our commitment to peaceful international order and to promote peace among people. We have that enshrined in our constitution. So this is the very short answer. The longer answer is our tradition. You mentioned the neutrality, Bryn. Geneva plays in our tradition a very important, a prominent place. It is the European head office of the United Nations with all the specialized organizations, which are also peace related. It's also the birthplace of the International Red Cross. We have also a Maison de la Paix, a House of Peace, with many international foundations which are working for peace. We have the Geneva Peace Building Platform. So almost I would say we are close to integrate from the Constitution to our DNA, but we are not there. We have heard how important it is to look not only violence and conflict, but to understand also our peace efforts as an answer to reduce fragilities. And here the importance of the sustainable goals of the United Nations, which guide us very much. I think this is why we believe that we have to invest in peace.
Thank you very much, Arthur. I know you and I had a conversation before this panel, and as a Rotarian, I was amazed at your knowledge of what Rotary's involvement in peace is. From your diplomatic experience, what should Rotary do to promote peace?
Well, Rotary has done a tremendous job. And I think the synopsis that Rotary International Director Peter Kyle gave us on Rotary and diplomacy is proof how much we have done already. And also what past Rotary International Director Larry Lunsford just presented to us, this tremendous contribution of Rotary to the Rotary Peace Center. This is a fantastic contribution. This is gold level, as we say, in peace education, and we have to maintain that. This is something that we cannot give up. This is something that we have to continue, and I salute really the building up of the Rotary Center in Africa, which was a very important step because there was no Rotary Center on the African continent. It was a great contribution. So the first answer is, let's maintain what we have solidly built up. But for me, it's also the question, how can we reach out to those who will never be in a university, to those who will be our project partners in peace projects. We have in Rotary so much know-how on peace that we should ask ourselves the question, how to use these resources also better. I think we should, as the United Nations is also in a moment to review the peace architect, we have also to think, how can we, next to the Peace Rotary Center, add something more or do something differently? And here comes my second point, which is something which has been already successful in its initial stage, which is a much closer cooperation with the former Rotary Peace Fellows. We have in Geneva the Rotary Peace Project Incubator. The difficulty often when I give a few speeches in Rotary clubs is, what can Rotary, what can our club do in peace? You know, we prefer to do this and that, but peace sometimes comes a little bit abstract for many people. And here the Rotarian Peace Project Incubator offers a very concrete solution to that. More than 50 Rotary Peace Fellows, Rotarians, Rotary actors, and international experts, they work today together in order to prepare at least 20 global grants for peace projects. And I think this is extremely promising. So we have the 1,300 alumni that we have to bring them back in our operations for our peace centers, and this in a very concise way. I'm very happy that we are almost there, and imagine to have 1,300 Rotary Peace Fellows now active in Rotary Peace projects. So this means for me impact, this means for me then also outreach of what we want to do. So as peace is in our DNA, so let's give every Rotarian the chance to live that DNA.
Thank you, Ambassador Arthur. I think you've given a very nice synopsis for Rotarians of what they can do and how we can move forward. Unfortunately, in a virtual context like we are, it's not easy to do a question and answer, and we do have a time limitation. So I want to thank all of you, especially our guests, the diplomats that are here for joining us. To our Rotary senior leaders, thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank the organizing committee of the Institute for giving us this opportunity to present to you on what Rotary is doing in peace. So thank you all, and hopefully we'll meet again in person sometime in the future. Thank you.